In 1883, a bridge of steel and stone stretched across the East River, connecting two great cities for the first time. It was the longest suspension bridge ever built, a structure many believed impossible. These are original photographs taken during the bridge's construction between 1869 and 1883, carefully restored and colorized. For more than a century, these moments existed only in black and white. Now, we can see the Brooklyn Bridge as its builders saw it. The story begins not with triumph, but with tragedy. In 1867, German-born engineer John Augustus Roebling proposed a suspension bridge spanning the East River. He had already built suspension bridges across America, but nothing of this scale had ever been attempted. Roebling's vision was unprecedented. A bridge with towers taller than any structure in either city, suspended by steel cables woven on site. On June 28, 1869, just weeks after construction was approved, Roebling stood on a ferry slip surveying the site. A boat crushed his foot against the pilings. He refused medical treatment beyond amputation of his toes. 3 weeks later, he was dead from tetanus. The bridge had claimed its first victim before a single stone was laid. His son, Washington Roebling, inherited both the project and the pressure. At 32 years old, he took command of what would become a 14-year odyssey. Washington had studied pneumatic caisson construction in Europe. He knew what lay ahead. To anchor the massive towers, workers would descend into caissons, giant wooden boxes sunk to the riverbed, pressurized with compressed air to keep water out. Men worked in near darkness, in heat exceeding 80 degrees,
digging through sand, mud, and boulders. They called it working in the hole. By 1870, the Brooklyn caisson had reached the riverbed. Men entered through iron airlocks, descending into a pressurized underworld. The conditions were brutal. Headaches, joint pain, paralysis. Workers collapsed without warning. Doctors could not explain why. They called it caisson disease. We now know it as decompression sickness, the bends. More than 100 men were seriously afflicted. At least 20 workers died during construction. The bridge exacted a terrible toll. In 1872, Washington Roebling himself was struck down by caisson disease after spending too many hours in the Manhattan caisson. He would never fully recover. Bedridden and in constant pain, he retreated to his Brooklyn Heights apartment overlooking the construction site. He watched through a telescope as his bridge rose without him. But he was not alone. Emily Warren Roebling, his wife, became his eyes, his voice, and his representative on site. For over a decade, she relayed his instructions to engineers, negotiated with contractors, and defended the project before skeptical politicians. By 1875, the great towers were rising. Built of limestone, granite, and cement, they would stand 276 feet above the water, the tallest structures in New York. Gothic arches gave them the appearance of medieval cathedrals. They were monuments before the bridge was even finished. The cables came next. Roebling had designed a process never before attempted at this scale. Thin steel wires were strung back and forth across the river, then bound together into 4 massive cables, each nearly 16 inches thick, containing more than 5,000 individual wires. The spinning took nearly 2 years. When complete, the cables held enough steel wire to circle the earth. On December 2, 1876, the first cable reached across the river. Master mechanic E.F. Farrington became the first person to cross the East River by wire, riding in a bosun's chair high above the water. Crowds gathered on both shores to watch. The bridge deck was suspended next, plank by plank, section by section. The structure grew toward the center, finally meeting in the middle in 1883. On May 24, 1883, the Brooklyn Bridge opened to the world. What began as one man's vision, what continued through death and disease, what demanded the sacrifice of workers and the dedication of a family, was finished. Two cities were now one. The age of steel had arrived. And the Brooklyn Bridge still stands.